Hey guys, it's Celine. It's Monday. What is it today? Can I tell? 17th? Yes, 17th of May 2021. And I want to come out and talk about something that I've, together with my husband, finally figured out that has a huge impact on how I see people and how I have how on things with people, you know? Things with angry people. That's what this is really about. I've got a ton of other things that I want to talk about, things that I want to share. I have a pretty stone. This is just one of a set of pretty crystals that I scored, hauled yesterday at the shop out where we were. We've had a, really nice weekend. We were out away from the house for a night, combining a client run on Saturday and the beach on Sunday with a crystal shop, my favorite top of the range crystal shop in the country. And it's been awesome. So I've got a crystal haul that I will also make a little vlog about because they're worth sharing separately and talking about. However, it's the most pressing thing on my mind, apparently, at the moment, is this people thing. So, in order to make this more easy, hopefully, to understand, I have to go back to 2020, where I had suddenly got new neighbors. My new neighbors had a huge problem with my big ass maple tree in the backyard that was there at the time. And instead of talking to us directly or trying to come to some type of understanding, they talked to the people who let these houses, all of them, all this whole area here, this whole neighborhood. And those people phoned us again a couple of times in order for us to do something about the big ass tree and the pigeons that were sitting in the tree and roosting and shitting on their outdoor furniture and things like that. It was a massive problem. It took me a very long time to really understand what it was that the problem was for them. Also to figure out a solution about the practical problem. And in the meantime, what with it being lockdown times and corona times and all the rest of it, we just had a lousy time of it. All of us. Them too, but over here, it has been, there were phases where it was an absolute nightmare. Because for me to deal with my neighbor, the female of the two, the woman, turned out to be nearly impossible. She was, very much, she was probably scared, I don't know, to deal with this whole thing. I have no idea. But it was such a problem for her that she went to these lengths of going behind our backs and my, those people that let the house, they called us when we were on holiday, actually the day before my birthday. We were in the forest the first day that we actually went, were feeling, that we were gotten away from it all and we were actually outside the country. And my phone rings and it's this crappy situation again. And in the end, towards the end of August, it was me who had to decide because my husband doesn't make these types of decisions. He doesn't, just go, okay, so we're going to have to deal with this for once and for all. We'll just have to go chop somewhere. It was me who had to pull the plug and say, okay, we'll have to figure out a way to get rid of the tree because we tried trimming it on all sides. There's witchy check-ins with all that stuff, if you're if this relates to you for some reason or other, you're free to go back to the summer of 2020 on this channel and hear all about it. I was miserable. Anyway, I'd been thinking on and off about why it was so hard to talk to those people, also for them to talk to us, apparently. We talk to people all the time. We don't have this type of difficulty with people like nearly ever. So, except way back in the past, there were issues and things where it was hard like this. So I was reminded of my mother, the way things went, and a couple of other people that I've known in the course of my life, in the manner of how hard it was, how impossible it was to see sense both ways, to communicate. You can sometimes tell when it's somebody you really don't know. I have spoken to her half a dozen times, max, and always only because I went out to her to get something explained or sorted. Impossible, insurmountable barriers, And the only thing emotionally that I filtered out of the whole situation was that she was blaming me big time, me, for this thing. And she was really upset and really angry. To an extent that I didn't feel like it made that much sense. It bothered her, the fact that her furniture was ruined, or, she had to clean her furniture. I don't know. These things were bothering her. Okay. My backyard looks really different from hers. Okay. But none of that really added up to the level of animosity I was getting from her there. So it took me a long time to figure out that there was actually a lesson here that I have to learn. I have to learn from this, and that's why I'm here and why I'm trying to present this to you, because this has happened to me before, and I needed to think about this. I haven't thought about it like all the time at all ever since. In September, we had the tree pulled out. There's also a video about that on my channel. It was it cost a lot of money. We had to pay for it ourselves, all of it. And there was no help. And it was a tree that we'd inherited from the previous people who lived here for another, number of decades. So the tree had been there like forever, and it was growing bigger and bigger. And I'm okay with it being gone now, because I still have a fig tree that is putting out leaves now. And so in the summertime, I will still have a place to sit underneath the fig tree in the shade, and it will have a bit more, I like to have a bit of a neat natural ecosystem in my backyard. So my approach to gardening is very different from theirs, because they've got it all paved up and it's all concrete slabs on their side, and with the little bits of pots and spaces with plants in, and the rest is made of stone. So I'm fine. This is the Netherlands. You have to live with each other. Everybody in its little box with its little backyard, and just be grateful for the fact that you have this much backyard, because lots of people don't. So, okay, all of that. By the time the tree was gone, the problem that was between us was gone. She said so. Also, she was really relieved to have this issue out of her life. And I have not talked to them ever since. Actually, we both have our lives. Everybody is living their own lives, and it's fine, really. So no more stress, no more panic on my side. Like, oh my God, I was so scared and so stressed from the way she was behaving, from the level of animosity that I was getting from her, as long as that tree was there, that I really had no clue how to behave anymore. And this is the type of situation that I really want to talk about, that I really want to go into in a bit more detail, because this is how I grew up with my own mother, where there's a couple of things happening, and I'm just sketching this so as to maybe, you have had a similar situation, maybe not with a parent, maybe with a partner, but there is this thing going on that by now I am starting to think of it as the lake of hidden anger. So it took me I'm first going to tell you what it was that I had, my new thoughts that I had, and then maybe try and, talk a bit more about how that relates to my mom's situation and all those things. So after not having thought about them since September, hardly at all, except when you maybe see them in the street or something like that. We tend to say hi to each other, but that's it. Last Saturday we were driving and we were sort of, for some reason or other, we got to talking about them again, because I had realized during the past couple of weeks that this husband of hers that I see walking around, he has a bit of a shifty air about him. There's something about him. We don't know anything about these people. They come here from another town. I don't know, 60, 70 kilometers away from here. She is not from this area at all. Neither am I. So we are total strangers. We know zero, nothing about these people. And I have no reason to want to know anything or to want to know anything more. There's no reason for me. However, it seems to me, as I see him walking with his dog, and I've seen him, going about his maintenance things that he does around the house and whatever, there's something fishy, something as if the first thing my husband said when I mentioned it in the car on Saturday is like, maybe he's been in jail. Maybe I don't think he's a real criminal. I don't think he's done, drugs trade or anything really nasty like that. But maybe he's helped in breaking in somewhere. I don't know. We're just inventing here, really, basically. However, the issue being that I am quite sure by now that there's actually a rather large sort of a moral gap, a gap in behavior between him and her. And she, just like I've encountered in my own life with a husband, similarly, has to be like the police officer in the house, always. When decisions have to be made in this house, it's nearly always me who has to do it. I ask my husband's opinion. Nowadays, I know this. I have figured this out now, how to go about this most of the time. Like, oh my God, what else is coming to me? I don't know, because stuff has happened, it just happens all the time. Somebody has to have a moral compass, decide things, even, be sort of accountable, be responsible for the lot of you. And if that's the case, if you know that's the case, and if you act accordingly, everything's fine. It's like the person in the relationship or group of people with the strongest moral fiber, whatever that really means, has to step up occasionally when it's needed, to also tell the other guys to either, stop the stupid partying or whatever else it is that they need to be told. You sometimes have to tell your people what to do, or to at least come to some type of an agreement about some things. You cannot just live regardless, is my opinion. And that's how I grew up anyway, is you have to be accountable. You have to be able to account for yourself, for what it is that you're up to, okay? So in a relationship, often, I see that often, one of the two in a marriage, for example, has to sort of be the conscience for both of them, or has a different, it's like marriage except at a moral and ethics level of things. However, with the responsibility comes the need for a certain level of power, a certain level of being allowed to interfere, to speak up, to state, hello, I'm not having, or this is a borderline that we don't want crossed because consequences. With kids, same thing. So there's a massive discordance, I would say, in society, especially for women, between the level of accountability that they are that's forced on them often, where they're supposed to be really the brains or the conscience of the outfit, and then on the other hand, the actual power that they have to make people listen to them, or even to think, actively, so as to come to a conclusion and, okay, this is what we're going to be doing or not doing anymore, or whatever it is. See where I'm going with this? I think, well, in my marriage, myself, I am in the blessed position where I am the conscience and or the brains of the outfit. My husband tells me so himself. And he wants nothing more than for me to tell him at the point where there is doubt or lack of clarity or lack of perspective. He wants nothing more than for me to say, look, at this point, the most important thing is A, B, or C. And then from there on out, reason from your priority or whatever it is that you have at that point. He loves it. He loves me to be, and as the years pass, recently, I have taken up this burden gladly and accepted it. And sometimes it's still a bit surprising to me that you have to actually, step up and take this job. And it's fine. I'm fine. It's totally fine. However, over there in the other house, I don't think the same thing really happens, because those people don't seem to be really aware of also, I would tend to say, the power that can be gained if you work together in this way. So if the guy who's strongest in that part of life actually gets the responsibility for doing that part of life for the other guys, and so you have a set of tasks, and they are attributed to different people with an equality, a sense of equality as to value. They're all valuable. People don't think like this. People think in terms of money. Value is money, so I have to go out and make money, because only if I have money, to some extent, to whatever extent, is there value. I think that's utter nonsense. Your value is in your collaboration with people only, really. There can be a lot of inner value as well, which is a different story. But the more inner value you develop, the better your collaboration will come out, I believe. Also, that's at least how I look at it and the way it's been for me. So, going back to the situation over there, what I've thought is the practical conclusion that I'd come to was that they have this historical issue somehow. There's something that he's been up to, that he's done in the past. She has not forgiven him for that. But she has not been able to come to terms. I don't know. What would be her way to come to terms with this? I have no idea. And because I don't know her, there is a massive reserve of anger in her about this issue that she has actually with her husband, with some type of behavior of his in the past. He feels guilty. He walks around like a guilty person. Totally. So there's that. That is also, in my belief, it is not the first time that she has held a reserve of anger in herself. Probably she has also seen other people in her family do this before as she grew up. So it's a model that she has gotten, okay? This model I recognize 100%, because this is what my mom was like. I have always wondered, I will be 55 this August, and I have wondered and puzzled and brain froze over the idea that people go through a million bad things in life, a million stupid, horrible, traumatizing experiences, and they do not try to reassert themselves? What is it really? I don't know. That they will just sit and gripe forever. My mum was like that. She was hollowed out from the inside by her own anger. There was the First World War, the Second World War, I should say, where she was for 4 years in a concentration camp in Indonesia with her mother, and her dad and her brother were in a different camp for all that time, nearly all that time. Before that, there was a history of what I would tend to say now domestic violence in that family, going back generations of actual physical disciplining, against small children, that she's never been able to forgive her father for that. The fact that I have sort of come to the conclusion in recent years that her father had undergone the same treatment from his mother, what with her frustrations that she had towards men, and this is more than a century ago that we're talking about now, is a factor that I cherish for its explanatory value in the whole of that family, because my granddad was not a violent man. He was not a sadist or any of it. He did what was done to him. So there's that, there's the history, there's the model of this type of behavior, of not being allowed to express yourself, not being able to express yourself. All this I knew. But I didn't really know about the reserves of anger, the lake of hidden anger is what I call it, where if you happen to be on the bad side of a person in any kind of situation anywhere in the world, you suddenly incur their wrath for some reason, you get slaughtered. And you have, if you're sensitive or an empath like me, you're just bulldozed like there's no hope left for you. This happened to me last year again, and it's happened to me a number of times with different people during different decades of my life, where I felt like this is out of proportion. I said to my husband yesterday, we were talking about this whole thing again. So there was first the discovery of, okay, so there's actually something really shifty. This guy looks guilty, and she knows about it, and she doesn't want us to know. She doesn't want anyone else to know, doesn't want to talk about it ever. She's incapable of addressing the issue properly, but they both know about it. This frustrates her all the time. That was the discussion on Saturday, and yesterday we continued thinking about it and talking about it, and I came to this conclusion where apparently there's two kinds of people, and that's my bottom line here today. The bottom line is that there are single-minded people, what I will call for the duration of this video, the single-minded person, that's them. My mother was a single-minded woman, where they have things in their backpack that they're lugging around with them the whole time. They're not dealing with them. They don't know how. I don't know why that is really, but there's a sort of a simplicity of mind in them, and they accept being miserable. They accept hurting for the rest of their lives. They're angry about it. So it doesn't matter what it is that you do wrong, but there is going to be a point with a person like that where all of a sudden the dam bursts and you're flooded. You're the recipient of this person's attitude, and it makes no sense to you that you get bulldozed or bombed out of existence, whereas what you really did wrong, supposing there was actually something you did wrong, was like this big. It maybe needed saying but that's all, and you didn't need to be in front of the fire squad or whatever that's called, for this, because you're responsible really only for this. This is me talking here. I was responsible for a couple of times growing up because being a kid, and I was a kid. So what? I did a number of these. Of course I did. Everybody, I ran around and I wasn't always polite and blah and blah. And I used to get shot. I didn't not shot, with an actual gun, but my mother could she broke me into little pieces because she had this single-minded nature. I am contrasting for myself the single-minded person with the, what, by lack of a better term, multiple minded person, where a multiple-minded person will always look for a loophole. They do not want to be miserable. I am like that. I cannot live with being miserable for longer than half a day. I'm not doing it. I do not do this, I have to redress myself, invent, if I have to, some kind of a way to be relatively cheerful again. For real, genuine cheerful. Because otherwise I just, I will, there's no life. There's no, so this is how we deal in different ways with the difficulties of life. We deal either by looking for loopholes or by digging a hole and resisting, like a trench, like in the trenches, trenches-minded people. Maybe also another term for the single-minded. And then, sort of in a next level observation from this, I found that there are single-minded people who want to be multiple-minded because it appeals to them and they find this really interesting and attractive, and it looks nice to them to be able to let go, but they don't really know how. So they try to copy what they understand or how that has come to them of strategies that give them a kind of a sense of having more freedom, I suppose. There's also multiple-minded people who think that being single-minded is better because it's the old way, it's the classical way of how people used to behave, being principled and tough and all that, and that makes you stronger. Being tough makes you stronger. Makes no sense, but there's these like merger versions of these people, okay? I would qualify myself as a total multiple, where I will look for any kind of strategy to not have to obsess over pain, because yowzer, I will look for any strategy through the pain. Also, I've just had to learn that there was such a thing as finding a way through the pain, that was a possibility. That's really that's, I think, the best scenario. I didn't invent that. That's just something I've seen people do. I've seen people find ways to live with, things, and then find out that they actually do have courage and they do have other qualities that they can apply and that work for them, and that they become, bigger people and stronger and happier. Yes, quite a bit happier people in that way. But the single-minded is, I think, it's quite it looks to me like it's really an old-fashioned way of doing things. It's, we have inherited this mindset to quite some extent. My husband's also multiple. He will, take it as it comes as often as possible. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with either vision. It just depends what you've been through. And there's this one great disadvantage to the single-minded mindset is that they keep lugging anger around and don't mind the depletion of their energy resources, it seems. And I find that, like, that boggles me completely, because anything that is costing me energy and not giving me some, I will spend my life on something that I'm passionate about or that makes me feel good. But to spend even half an ounce on something that isn't worth it, in my opinion, or that I can't make any type of progress, I cannot change the past. I can be mad at my parents and sit here and gripe about my parents forever. What good is that going to do? That's a waste of energy, and that's a big crime in my book. So yeah. So hidden anger and hidden, out of sight, covered up injustice. Those may be big explanatory factors for people like myself, maybe people like you, who are really very sensitive to vibrations, who, especially in dark relationships with parents, get endless grief from people who are dominant. People who are really dominant tend to be really single-minded. It's the same thing, really, in my book. They will, they have already decided everything about the whole issue, everything about you, and you have no space to breathe in that type of relationship. If this is your mother, good luck to you. God knows it's nearly 30 years, a couple more years, and it'll be 30 years since my mother passed away. And I'm still trying to understand lots of these things. Each time I actually make progress in this way, I feel, for me, this is progress. It really helps to sort of see that there's a different category for those types of people, and people, they're motivated in a completely different way. And so you can think it's stupid, or you can have opinions about that, but it makes sense to them, I suppose. So yeah, so that's half an hour psychosocial babble. I hope that it's of some kind of interest. I will do more filming probably tomorrow, Wednesday. I will have, I've got a new crystal skull. It's really pretty. I've got some Tumo intel as well. So we will see where we go from here. Thank you for watching. I hope you like my talk. Otherwise you wouldn't be here, huh? Okay, so be safe, and I'll be seeing you next time. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.